Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at how I made this little spiky crown thing. Now what is this? If you guys aren't following me on Instagram and TikTok, which you definitely should be, this is a part of my Star Wars cosplay at the moment. It is a headpiece that has Zabrak horns around it. The idea behind this was that I wanted to cosplay as a Zabrak. They're my favorite race in Star Wars. I wanted to have horns, but I didn't want to go to the effort of attaching them to a wig or attaching them to my face and skin, because the majority of this would be used for TikTok videos, which I just wanted to, pull the cosplay out pretty quickly and get started, or just for photos and things like that. And it also needed to be fairly strong in the case that I can whack with a lightsaber and I'm not going to break it. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to make this just for a Zabrak. This could be any sort of costume that needs horns or antlers or anything like that. Even fins, you could use the same technique. Now, just a quick note, I have made this out of foam and 3D printed the horns. If you don't have a 3D printer, that's perfectly okay. You can make the horns out of foam, or you can make them out of clay or anything like that. Whatever you want, however you want to make these, you do not need to use a printer to make these. But before we go any further, I just want to apologize for any background noise in this video. I've got my resin printers going at the moment because you guys have been blowing up my dragons on my Etsy. It's been absolutely amazing, and I can't thank you enough for all the support. I will leave a link down in the description below to my Etsy, as well as a direct link to the dragons, because when they're sold out, Etsy hides them, so. But thank you again for that. So let's just jump right in to modeling these horns. So let's start off with the default cube. No, I'm just joking. We're deleting this and replacing it with a cone. But of course, at this moment, we can't really sculpt it. It just sort of moves around like this. So we're going to go into the sculpt mode and remesh this. And so once we're happy with the number of vertices we have in our cone, we can begin sculpting. Now for this, I'm just going to use a basic deform tool and sort of just stretch it out so it resembles the sort of horn shape I'm going for. I don't want it to be too thin because that means the printer's going to struggle and it doesn't look very nice either. So as we're moving this out, I'm also making it wider and making sure that it actually resembles a Zabrak horn. But to make these horns look more natural, I actually need a couple of variations in the horns that I have. So to do that, I'm just going to copy and paste and slightly deform these in different ways and make them larger and smaller so that we have a set of varying sized horns. So I'll be using my artillery sidewinder filament printer to print these. Mainly because it's a bit cheaper and I think they'll be a bit stronger than using a resin printer. So the first thing I did is make sure they were to scale. I'm using Prusa Slicer as my slicer of choice, and for this particular application it tells you the size in the bottom right corner. I also multiplied the number of horns I had on the base plate so I could get a sense of how many I actually need for this project. I was planning on printing these one by one, but turns out it was actually quicker to print them all at once, so let's do that! I totally got that in one take, totally. So here I'm just sanding off the base of the horns. During the 3D modeling part of it, I forgot to completely flatten off the base, so when it printed there was some supports down there that I just couldn't remove properly, so I'm going to be sanding them off now. So after playing around for a while, I came up with this formation. Alrighty, so we've got our horns. But now what? Now there's a couple of ways that you can attach horns in Cosplays. There is special effects glue and latex, which you can use to stick it onto your skin like this. You can also attach it to a wig so that it's on the wig, you don't have to worry about it. You can do this with magnets, you can actually sew it in, that sort of thing. But I neither have special effects glue or do I have a wig that I want to use for this particular costume. So, this is my solution, and this solution came about because I also wanted it to be easy to take on and off, because the majority of things I'll be using this cosplay for are TikTok videos. And for that, we're going to create a helmet or a headpiece of sorts. Now I took a lot of inspiration for this helm from the Twi'lek, the headpieces that they have, because that's a brilliant way to do it, really. So, for this, we're going to be creating something pretty akin to the Skyrim headpiece, but instead of using 3D filament and 3D printing it, we're going to be using EVA foam. EVA foam is a really good thing to have in your cosplay creation and prop creation arsenal. It's fairly cheap. I got mine at Bunnings for like $5 or something. It's lightweight, and you can do a whole lot with it. This is really good for creating armor pieces. Now, I'm still a little bit of a rookie when it comes to this. I haven't quite worked out how to make it look nice, but I think I've got a plan for this headpiece. So what you're seeing here is how I actually design my armor pieces when I'm too lazy to create patterns. I will wrap a piece of foam around the body part it's going to attach to and measure it out that way. Now this is completely inaccurate and not a very good practice at all, but it just saves a little bit of time for me. I like to feel that it's fitting correctly rather than using a paper pattern. But most definitely for more complex armor pieces or any sort of cosplay pieces, make a pattern. Here I'm mainly working out how much foam I need for each section of this piece, and as you can see on my tablet there, I have a little sketch of kind of what I want this to look like. And once I'm happy with that, I can begin carving everything out. I'm also using a scalpel knife to mark where the horns sit on each piece so that I can make sure it's all aligned evenly. And what you can't see off screen is I'm actually putting it up to my head and making sure I like the size and the shape of each piece. So now that I had the details for the horns all done and ready to go, I needed to work out how I was going to design the headband. To do this, I cut the foam to size, wrapped it around my head to get my circumference of my head. Now this was so I knew exactly how much of this I needed. I knew it was going to be the right size and I could lay out all the little horn details exactly where I want them. So from here, I would put the horn details onto the headband and then use these as a stencil to cut out where they needed to go. And for all the attachments in this build, I'll just be using super glue. Again, I'm putting this around my head periodically to make sure everything's in the spot that I want it. So this process was repeated until eventually I had the entire crown done. And once the foam parts were done, it was time to work out the horns. Now the problem with sticking a bunch of horns to a headpiece is that it can look just like that, a bunch of horns stuck to a headpiece. But these horns were supposed to be a part of the character, not the costume. Therefore, I wanted to have a couple of horns in places that looked like they were connected to the skin, not the headpiece, even though we all know they're connected to the headpiece. To do this, I would need to glue the horns on the sides of the headpiece, not on the base. So I played around with this concept and came up with this. Ta-da! And now to glue the rest of them. And this is how it looks with all the horns on. But the headpiece was feeling a bit bulky to me, so I used my fingernail to scratch out a bit of a design in the headpiece. And I thought about this for a while, because I didn't really want to cut it and then have it be awful. Because that would have been a pain to redo. Thought about it for a very long time. But in the end, I decided to just go for it. And it was definitely worth it. But now I needed to clean it up and add some details. So for this, you're gonna need your safety gear. My safety supervisor, Greg, is here to remind you to wear your safety glasses and a mask when dealing with fumes. Because we're gonna use a burner to burn some designs into the foam. Now, due to the nature of the 3D printed parts, they will melt if you get them too hot. So definitely avoid having the burner anywhere near them. Or your hands, for that matter. Don't burn your hands. Please don't. Now you might see that there are already some thin lines etched into the foam. This is because I like to plan out what I'm doing with a burner by using an X-Acto knife. And you can also use your fingernail for the same effect. You just need to scratch a very small line into the foam, and you can actually use your burner to follow this line, so it makes it a little bit easier to get a high accuracy with this thing. And using a burner on foam is also a really good way to add some battle damage to your items. And this is what it looks like with the details burned in. You've got to do multiple test fits, you just have to. Now I actually kind of liked how this looked without paint, but I'm gonna paint it. I gotta paint it. I just got to. So for this, we're gonna be using just a simple black primer spray paint to prime all the pieces before we paint it with acrylic. And now my favorite kind of night, sitting back, watching some movies or a series, and painting. Yay! I've also somehow lost the footage of painting the silver. I'm not sure where that went, but all it was just brushing silver paint over the parts. You've seen me use this technique before. I've done it on the Hawkmoon replica. I've done it on a couple other pieces as well. I'm also really sorry that a lot of this is out of frame. I was too busy watching WandaVision. It's really good. You should watch it if you haven't already. But now let me show you how it turned out. Well guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you did. It only takes a second and it means the world to me. I really like how this turned out. I really need to get better at foam smithing, but considering I haven't touched foam in over a year or two, I'm really happy with this. This went really well. And it's just so easy to put on and off, and I have whacked it with a lightsaber quite a fair few times lately. And it's held up really, really well, so that's good to see. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Friday. Bye!